Hi, I'm Dave. I've been experimenting with flavorings in meal replacements. Just to review, I'm adding flavors to Soylent 1.8 and to plain unsweetened superfuel. If you have not watched my segment on sweeteners, you should do that first. In this segment, I will talk about adding sweetener, and I am referring to my 9:1 dilution of monk fruit powder, or it could be a 9:1 dilution of pure sucralose powder. In this segment, I am covering caffeine-based flavors, matcha, coffee, and some coffee-like flavor powders, including the latest flavor agent from Huel. Let's start with matcha, or green tea. I have to confess that I do not much like the flavor of green tea. To me, it smells like dried grass. I know this for certain because I grew up on a dairy farm, and every year I helped to bring in a crop of hay. That's me, age 10, hoisting a pitchfork of hay. I have inhaled and swallowed my share of dust from dried fescue. So when I say matcha tastes like dried grass, I am not just imagining things. But there are lots of people who have acquired the taste for matcha, and that's fine. Now, to get repeatable tests, I added tea powder by the gram, but for your convenience, I checked what it weighs by the teaspoon. And as you can see, 1 teaspoon weighs about 2 grams. So 1 level teaspoon in a 400 calorie, 400 cc or 400 gram shake is about 0.5% by weight. I started there, but then I doubled it to 1%. Matcha powder did not mix very well, even with prolonged shaking. You get a nice light green color right away, but there are lots of dots of unmixed powder. It is really essential to use a blender. Mixed at 1% in Soylent, you get a Soylent that tastes like dried grass. Mixed into plain superfuel, the result is very bitter with mineral overtones. I think it's that electrolyte mix again. Using superfuel, you need to add just a touch of sweetener to balance it out. Okay, setting tea flavor aside, let's talk about coffee. The simplest way to add coffee flavor is to use coffee. Duh. I brewed up about 500 cc's of my favorite coffee, Pete's Gaia blend, and I used that instead of water to mix up a 500 calorie shake of superfuel. No surprise, the result tastes like unsweetened black coffee. I added sweetener, and in fact about twice the usual amount, 0.5% instead of 0.25%. And that tastes like a sweet cafe au lait or a melted coffee ice cream shake. Now this is a little bit of trouble, making a pot of coffee, waiting for it to cool, etc. There is a simpler way, and that is to add powdered instant coffee. For my tests, I used this, Medaglia d'Oro, and I like the results a lot. Adding it at about 1% by weight gives it a rich coffee flavor. That would be 4 grams to a 400 cc shake. I tested it, and 1 level teaspoon of this coffee weighs in about 1 gram, which is helpful. Again, I would want to sweeten this to get a coffee shake flavor. I have been testing some flavors from the TrueNutrition Company, a Canadian maker of protein shakes. They sell flavor powders, including a Cafe Mocha flavor. This powder contains its own sweetener in the form of stevia. The directions say to add 3 grams to a 30-gram scoop of the TrueNutrition protein powder. This would be about 10% by dry weight. Powder for a Soylent or a superfuel meal weighs about 80 grams, which would suggest adding 8 grams of the TrueNutrition flavor to 1 shake. That seemed a bit high to me, so I started lower. In Superfuel, I worked up to about 5 grams of powder in a 400 cc shake. That would be about 2 teaspoons. At that, I got a distinct sweetened coffee flavor with some bitter aftertaste. Mixing it again into a 400 cc Soylent meal, it did not mix well and really needed a blender to finish it. And at that same level of 5 grams in a 400 cc shake, it had a mild coffee mocha taste, but I thought that in the Soylent it was too sweet. The Huel Company has offered their flavor system powders in England for a long time, but they only recently started selling them in the US, and I was anxious to try them. I ordered 4 flavors, but I'll just talk about the cappuccino flavor here. The Huel flavor system products are packaged in resealable bags. The cappuccino flavor is a brown powder that the directions say should be used to add 1/2 teaspoon to 100 grams of Huel. I checked, and 1/2 teaspoon of this powder weighed just 1.5 grams, so they're calling for a mix of 1.5% by dry weight. Translating that to the 80 grams of a 400 calorie Soylent or Superfuel meal, it would be 1.2 grams of Huel powder to a shake, and so that's where I started testing. Mixing 1 gram into a 400 cc Soylent shake produced no detectable taste at all. It took a lot of shaking, but it did mix eventually. When I doubled to 2 grams, I got some coffee taste, and it was then that I realized this powder has no sweetener. It is just coffee flavor. I was surprised at that. Finally, I doubled again to a total of 4 grams in a 400 cc shake, and I got a strong coffee flavor, similar to, but not as nice as, the Medaglia d'Oro powder. Adding a little sweetener improved it for me. In Superfuel, I had to add a total of 6 grams of the Huel powder to get the same coffee flavor I was used to from the tests with Medaglia d'Oro and from real coffee. And again, adding 0.5% of the sweetener, 2 cc's in a 400 cc shake, got it to a coffee ice cream flavor. Okay, conclusions. Matcha if you want it, but use a blender to get a good mix. For coffee flavor, my best and simplest results were with a good instant coffee powder. Huel's cappuccino flavor system was not an improvement on that. Thanks for watching. Next time we're going to go bananas over fruit flavors.